weekly Wednesday program, and thanks for tuning in. Who am I? I'm Lilia, and my pronouns are she and hers, and I believe gender is a spectrum. As the creator of a 3,000 strong Facebook peer group for Facialty, I've been dedicated to the trans community for the last 12 years now. Today, I'm very honored to welcome a group of very talented musicians from Atlanta, Georgia, and the surrounding areas in the United States. And they are called Exquisite Gender, and they are one of Atlanta's only all-trans rock band, or the only all-trans rock band in Atlanta. Thank you so much for coming, members of Exquisite Gender.
Thank you for having us. It's a pleasure.
So we have here Bucky, who is the rhythm guitarist, Amanda, who is the drummer. You see her drum set in the background.
Just Mandy.
Mandy. And Shanti, who is one of the lead singers, yes?
And bass player.
And the bass player.
Yeah.
So thank you again for coming. And one member couldn't make it today, Joanne.
Joanne,
correct?
our lead guitarist, yes.
Yep, she's a dork.
She's the most dorky of all of us.
And we're all pretty dorky, so.
Yeah.
So you can only imagine what she must be like.
Dork is good in the positive sense of the word.
Absolutely.
So to everybody who is listening now, or if you're watching this video and it's replay version, please tell us below in the comments where you're from and what your questions are so we can include them in the discussion. We're welcoming your questions about Exquisite Gender today. So tell us, please, a little bit about Exquisite Gender. Who are they? What is it?
Exquisite Gender is an eclectic trans explosion. It means that we are very eclectic in our style. We're eclectic in our hair color. We're eclectic in our guitar player. Joanne plays guitar synthesizer, piano on the guitar. We play songs from Hedwig and the Angry Inch. We play original songs and we play covers. And we explode in your face on stage. It's just like a wall of sound.
So there's your explosion.
Explode.
Yeah, we don't make a mess too much.
Yeah, our bodies stay in one piece anyway.
That's the idea. But musically, the idea is to, you know, we get this energy from the music, and just to be able to play it, and I've always felt a symbiotic relationship with the audience. So I mean, when the audience is there, you know, you feed off of them, and they kind of feed off of you. So that's, you know, between the two, you get that explosion. It's wonderful.
Excellent. So can you tell me a little bit about your backgrounds individually, how you got into music, if you've been in other bands?
Who wants to go? You want me to go?
Sure, go ahead, Shanti.
Okay. I grew up a tomboy. Obviously, I actually grew up a boy, and I always wanted to play baseball. So my parents, I had a brother and sister who were heavy into music. My parents were always asking me, do you want piano lessons, guitar lessons? I was like, no, I'm going to play baseball for the Mets. I grew up in Long Island, New York. So as things turned out, I really upset a baseball coach in my high school, and I got blackballed from all the sports teams. At the age of 18, I bought a bass guitar and I taught myself how to play. I drove everybody crazy for a few years until I finally figured out what I was doing. I put a band together when I was 23, played around the South for a couple of years. And then I played in a lot of different weekend bands, you know, playing just VFWs and American Legions and things like that around North Georgia. Took a long time off, and then got back into playing. I play in another band as well, and I started playing with them, and I hadn't picked up my bass in 7 years, and I'd lost all my calluses. It was really painful. If you've never played a bass guitar, those big strings will hurt you. So yeah, and then I wanted to play more, and it just so happened that Exquisite Gender was looking to make a move with their bass player, And I got in touch. Joanne and I know each other from way back, our lead guitarist, because we both worked with the Southern Comfort Transgender Conference. And I said I wanted to play more. She said, hey, you want to come and practice with us? And I said, sure. And the next thing I knew, I was in this band. So yeah, played in a bunch of different little rinky-dink bands that nobody's ever heard of.
All right.
But now everybody's going to hear of this band, okay?
Well, since Shanti took all the time now, I have about 35 seconds to
Ah,
talk about my history. But yeah, it started with pots and pans, of course, in the kitchen, wood spoons and pots and pans. Found an interest in drumming at a young age. And I went up to visit my mom, who my parents were divorced, up in Michigan. And I helped her work over the summer and bought my first drum kit. And once I had the drum kit, had something real to play on. I got in contact with some other friends in high school, and we had our first high school band. I think almost everybody has at least a chance to play music in high school. Took a really long hiatus from playing for about maybe 20 years while I fathered 2 children, 2 boys. Got divorced. And then once my children had grown up, I got back into drums. So I've really only been playing seriously for about 10 years now. Also self-taught. I have taken a couple online lessons in the past year or 2, but played in a couple, played in a trans band called Jezebel back in the early 2000s, and a band before Exquisite Gender called Straight Lace. And that's about my experience in a nutshell.
Well, I started playing guitar when I was 10, and I have a background in classical and jazz music. I have a degree in classical guitar performance. And I've been in several bands, and I've been a solo artist. And I've got 2 CDs, well, actually 3 CDs out, 2 CDs out under my given name, Angela Motter, and another one out under Bucky Motter. So the eclecticness of that Pleasure and Pain CD is really obvious. And then I was hanging around with our old bass player, and she wanted to do a gig where we played songs from Hedwig and the Angry Inch. And fortunately, I've played Yitzhak 3 different times in theaters, and I just have a deep love for that music. So we put together this band, Exquisite Gender, to play for a conference that I believe never happened. And the rest is history. We're still playing and still enjoying each other's company. For the most part.
And how about Joanne? Anybody want to fill us in on her, a little bit of her history?
You don't want me to talk about her.
Joanne,
Joanne the Dork.
she was actually the owner of the Guitar Institute of Atlanta. I think she was one of the owners, and she has just an extensive background. She plays everything from Bach to Tommy Emmanuel to our stuff. So she's just very versed and very versatile.
Well, she's classically trained too.
Yes. Yeah.
And she also plays in 2 marching bands here in Atlanta as well.
And she plays in how many? 5 bands total? I mean, she plays,
Yeah.
she's constantly playing. So
Yep.
she's very proficient at her instrument.
Extremely.
So it's very clear that you all have a long history of being musicians and involved in music in different ways and different aspects. So I guess that is what lends the eclectic. Now, can you talk a little bit more about what is exactly an eclectic trans explosion?
Well, like I said, it's the hair, it's the music, it's the different kinds of music. And as Shanti said, it's that feeling of playing in front of people who really relate to us. We have lots of, especially trans women, I think, that are showing up to our gigs, and people who you might not expect to show up at a gig, show up at our gigs, and maybe not even like the kind of music that we play until they hear it. It might not be that they would know that they even like it until they hear it, and they stick around, and they're very, very ardent fans.
Yeah, I think the core of our music has been around, for at least the past 2 years, has been around Hedwig and the Angry Inch. If you haven't ever heard of that musical, And if you've never heard of it or never watched it, you need to listen to the soundtrack or see the movie. And then you'll understand our love for that soundtrack. And so our shows basically revolve around that soundtrack. And we have other rockin' covers that we do, and we've been working during the pandemic on our original stuff. So we have yet to have a show with our original music we've been creating. So we're hoping to maybe even have an album by the time we get to play live again sometime.
We're working on it.
Yeah, Shanti's been writing a lot. I haven't been
Yes,
writing at all, but she's been writing a lot, and so is Mandy.
Well, a little bit of writing.
A lot.
No, we're having fun. It's so much fun for
So-
me for the first time in a long time, to be writing again. I haven't written music in a long time. I did many years ago, and this is really the first time. I did a few things with the other band I play in, but that's a totally different type of music. That's more of a spiritual thing. And so to write just rock and roll again after so many years, it's so much fun. And I play with such talented people to get their input. Like, okay, here's an idea, and then Bucky will say, well, why don't we try doing this? And Mandy will throw the drums in there, and then Joanne does the solo, and we all really work together really well. And the fact that we are trans, and the fact that we are out, and the fact that we are proud of being trans is also kind of cool for people. We did a show where we opened for a B-52s tribute band, wonderful band called the Lobsters of Rock, and they had a lot of their fans show up early. They saw our gig. They loved us. They absolutely loved us. They had no idea what they were walking into, but once they saw us, they loved us. So yeah, once this pandemic is over, we can get back to playing live. We're really looking forward to it. We've got a lot of exciting things to play for you. In the meantime, though, you can listen to what we've been noodling around with. We have some demos out. If you go to our website, you can listen to them. You can download them. Our YouTube channel, please follow us there, because we'll be putting more stuff out. Joanne has put together some nice videos for our original songs. So yeah, you can at least check out what we're doing.
So we'll be putting those links in the description. Thank you, Shanti. We'll be putting all the links to I've already shared your website, so all the links to your social media on your website, as well as all the other information about the band for anybody who wants to find out more. But before we finish, we're only halfway through, actually. I'd like to know a little bit more about, you mentioned that you're doing some new songs and some demos, and some of those are up on your YouTube channel. What is your mission as a band? Have you together, have you developed a sort of an idea of where you want to move forward with the messages that you're sending with your new songs, and with how the band is going to go in the future?
Yeah, Mandy, you want to take
Probably
that?
the best one to answer that question, since you've done the bulk of the writing and the composing of the music. So
Well, okay. Mandy and I spoke, and we decided that we're in a unique position as an all trans band, as members of the LGBTQI+ community. Why not write songs that relate to us? Things that that we can relate to. Nobody else is doing it, so why not? So we have a song that's you can listen to on our website called "No Judgment Needed." It's specifically written about a trans person who's tired of dealing with people who don't know anything that they're talking about, dumping on us and judging us. But it really relates to anybody who's had that experience, where somebody who really doesn't have any idea what they're talking about dumps on them for something. They judge them. And some of the new songs that we're going to be doing, that we're working on now, Solve for X, is all about a trans person just trying to figure out what it is, who they are exactly. Transition is different for all of us. For some of us, it includes surgery. For some of us, it doesn't. For some, it includes hormones. For some of us, it doesn't. But we all have to figure out how we're getting to where we want to be. And that's what that song is about. Another one that we're talking about, well, not talking about, we're doing it, but it's still in the working process, is called Dead to You. And it's about young trans person who gets thrown out of their house by their parents. Fortunately, it's never happened to us in the band, but we know people, all of us, I think, know people who have been through that. I certainly have met people who have been through that, and it's gut-wrenching to hear, you know, how a parent can do that to a child. So it's depressing as all hell, but it's an important message to get out there. So you know, maybe not every single song is going to be trans related, but we're going to do our best. I mean, I've got one that I'm trying to come up with an idea for right now. It's going to be called "What's My Agenda," because we're always hearing about the LGBTQ plus agenda that we're shoving down people's throats. I still don't know what it is. So,
I think our,
so
go ahead, Shanti.
no, I'm done. I was just going to say, so that's basically with the music. We're just going to try to focus on things that matter to the LGBTQ plus community.
It mattered to us. It mattered greatly to us.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I think our mission also is to create community. So, because I believe at least that being in the world and living a good, long life that's a good, awesome life has to do with finding community and finding each other. And as I said before when we were rehearsing, I'm not really one to assimilate. That's not my feeling, that I want to be like everybody else. I want to be who I am, which is a no-ho, no op, no hormone, no operations trans man. But if you go to our website, we have some list of resources that people can find, different resources in Atlanta and around if they are trans and they need help. So we're trying to do that to help create community.
I'm sharing the link to your resources right now in the chat for anybody who's listening and wants to find out more about these resources for the community. There it is, the link to that. So Mandy, do you have anything to add about the importance of music with a trans current, which is what we're talking about at this moment?
Well, there is one more thing I like that. I mean, both Shanti and Bucky really hit on all the strong points of what's really important to us as individuals. But another thing that's also important to us is being ambassadors to non-trans people too, allies of trans LGBTQI plus people. That's equally as important. I mean, you don't want to really stay in your bubble. You want to be able to show that, look what I can do. I can do the same things you can do, maybe even in some cases even better, and try to show that we're equally as talented as musicians. We can hold down good jobs, and so forth and so on, over and over again. And not all trans people are prostitutes. Like, people have this crazy image that, I know some people have to, but they have this image that we're all what's the word I'm looking for?
Prostitutes.
Well, you know, that
sex workers.
That we're not legitimate. That we don't live like everybody else does. And we're not trying to hide. We're completely all out that we're transgender. When I was working, I just recently retired. I tried to be an ambassador for all trans people, and it took a long time, took many years for people that had never even heard of transgender people to accept me as a coworker. But over time, I worked toward that goal, and we all were great friends. And you know, I went in recently to turn in my stuff, and everybody came over to wish me good luck and everything like that. And you know, in the very beginning, they would have just assumed I just died and not come to work again, you know. But over time, you can make a difference, I think. I really think you can make a difference. And as much as we want to stay within our community, we also want to broaden outside the community too. I know that was kind of long-winded, but
that's perfect.
No, it's perfect. It's perfect. You're absolutely right, Mandy. And that's why I included this question in our discussion today, because I think it is important for allies and for people who really just don't know anything yet about the LGBT plus community, and specifically the trans community. So these live streams that I'm doing are a way of bringing this information onto a platform that shows, you know, that your health care is matters, your social needs matter, the music is fantastic, the authors are fantastic, and there's a whole world, and it's all part of the valid diversity of humanity. So there's my long-winded answer.
Love it.
Well, you know, it's nice for people to know, and it's very important for them to know that there are very successful trans people out there, because they don't realize that. They think that we're on the fringe of society. You know, the sex work and just homeless and all these other things. I've been with the same company for over 20 years. I've been out from the very beginning. I'm the only trans person who works there. It hasn't been an issue because I love to educate people. Lily and I met at the Southern Comfort Conference many years ago. I was involved with that for many, many years on the board of directors. So I love to educate people. I was speaking with someone this morning who just is thinking about maybe they want to transition. And so we started talking about, you know, well, then you just need to figure out what's going to work for you, because what's going to work for you is not necessarily going to work for me. It's different for everybody. But for us, Bucky is successful as a guitar teacher and a vocal teacher and a performer. And, you know, Mandy was with Delta for over 20 years, and Joanne has been with her job for, I mean, we were all long-term, we're all success stories. And if that can inspire someone who's trans or LGBTQ who is having a hard time, and just let them know that, hey, don't give up. You know, it will get better. Maybe you need to take some classes in something, you know, if you're not happy with what you're doing now, but you can do it. And so I think that's highly important for us to set that example, to let you know, hey, and then in the meantime, we got this kick-ass band, you know, so that's kind of cool too.
Exactly. Hashtag it gets better. And
It
I
gets
think
better,
the
yeah.
reason why we're talking today, and apart from the fact that we'd already met Shanti, but I was, you know, as I do, you know, on the internet, and I found your music that you had shared, and I loved it. So I was listening to it as I was getting revved up for one of the live streams, and Mandy saw my post, and so that's why we're here today. And the reason why I've done lives with groups like Trans Gurus, which was a couple weeks ago. They're a group in Florida who, like you say, are all professionals, really. They or have professional backgrounds as authors and you know, professional workers, blue collar workers, actresses, and they just want to share information with the rest of the community to give, you know, that encouragement, which is really needed, as well as an impression of the trans community is very diverse. So that's why I love your little slogan, the eclectic explosion, because just like the trans gurus, they're about, you know, having very diverse representations of the trans community. And your group also, you're all, with all your backgrounds are so different, and your ways of being trans are different, and so it's real good representation of the beautiful diversity that there is in the community.
Thank you, that was well said.
Well, I do want to say one little extra thing that happened in my solo career, which is that I got an email from someone who I'm not sure what their gender was, but they said that one of my songs is called "Is It a Boy, Is It a Girl?" And it's about being both transgender and sort of in between. And this person heard the song on the radio while they were on their way in their car to go commit suicide. And so I was like, Grammy schmammy, who cares? This is the top of my game here, that I don't need anything else in life. I've lived a good life if I've saved somebody's life. So, and who knows, we might be doing the same thing with our band.
I think
That
that's
is
so
the ultimate.
important. Sorry.
When I originally asked for help to transition back in 1995, the person who helped me said, you have to promise me one thing, that you're going to help someone else. If you do that and promise me that, then I'll help you. And that's how I got involved with Southern Comfort, to help keep that promise. And I know for a fact, because I've had people come and tell me personally how much, things that I've done have affected them in a positive way, which is very humbling, but it's also what it's all about. If you can't help anybody else along the way, then, you're missing out, because there's no better feeling in the world.
I think it's an important aspect too of why to be out and open and have a positive message in your music, like you said, Bucky, because the trans community has one of the highest rates of suicide of any other communities, and so they really do need these pushes and help to see things from a more positive light and hope. So on that note, so it sounds like there are people who are getting inspiration from your music. I'd like to know, are there any musicians that you found inspiring yourselves and who are influences for you?
Mandy, you want to start?
Personally, those transgender musicians, but plenty of lesbian and gay musicians, of course. I'm from all the way back to Elton John, David Bowie. I mean, the list goes on and on and on forever, of course. I mean, we don't have a long enough show to discuss all the people that may have been an influence, but I think my general influence came from, I never really cared if they were LGBT or if they were straight or anything. If they played music I liked, I listened to it, and that was my influence. And it would be like early Van Halen, Iron Maiden, a lot of the 80s heavy metal that they called back, and I know they call it classic rock nowadays, but back then to me it was the the heavy metal of the time in the 80s. Judas Priest, Rob Halford is gay. So I mean, I'm going to pass it on to Bucky, because you probably have a long list of definites, but mine is just so diverse. I mean, like I said, from Elton John to Judas Priest. I mean, I like all kinds of music. So
for me, there's two kinds of music: songs that I like and songs that I don't like. And that's all I can say about that, because
and some of them have been ours that we've created.
That's right. I mean, I truly believe that. Like, I've been so fortunate over the years to play with excellent musicians. There's some singers on Pleasure and Pain, my CD that I mentioned earlier, who were just amazing, who took over parts that I couldn't sing as well as they could. And so, believe it or not, every now and then I'll revisit and listen to that CD and just be blown away by the level of musicianship that's on that CD. And I was so fortunate to work with such great musicians. But I started out listening to jazz and classical music, and from there it went everywhere.
How about you,
I
Sam?
grew up on AM Top 40 radio. 77 WABC in New York was a used to have my little transistor radio, and you walk around in the summertime listening to songs.
Some people may not know what that is.
Yeah, that's true.
I've always been a sucker for a good melody. Paul McCartney, John Lennon were amazing melody writers. My favorite songwriter is a guy by the name of Neil Finn from the band Crowded House. Before that, Split Enz. You were mentioning LGBTQ musicians. My favorite singer is Lizzie Hale of Hailstorm, and she's on record as being bi, and she's got the voice of a demigod. She's untouchable as far as I'm concerned.
Lizzie Hale.
I was fortunate enough to meet her. I have hugged her twice, I will say that. So, but yeah, she's amazing. And again, the thing about music, it tends to be, not always, but musicians tend to be a bit more accepting. I will never forget when I was beginning to transition, word got in. I live in North Georgia, in a place called Cleveland, Georgia, and the bigger town to the south is called Gainesville, Georgia. And there was a musician community back in the 80s that I was a part of. It was small, but there were some talented people here. And in the 90s, when I started transitioning, word got around, oh, hey, you heard Shoe, my nickname used to be Shoe. You heard, Shoe is experimenting with alternative lifestyles. And one night I came into town to listen to some old friends play. I hadn't seen them in years. hadn't started hormones, hadn't started transitioning yet, but my nails were growing out, my hair was growing longer. And one guy that I saw is a wonderful, wonderful man, an incredible guitarist. Ted Tuck is his name. He plays with a band called King Daddy Polecats. They're amazing, and he's phenomenal. He came up to me, gave me a big hug, and he said, "It's okay, man. We're artists. We change." And I just thought that was brilliant. You know, I mean, that's exactly it. So I've always found that musicians tend to be a bit more accepting. They don't really care about the whole LGBTQ plus thing. It's just, do you play good music or do you suck? And fortunately, we happen to be, in my opinion, a very good band that just happens to be all trans.
I don't think we happen to be all trans. We did that purposely.
Yeah, but we didn't know we were going to end up in the band together.
That we
But I'm glad that we did.
Yeah. Well, we really did start out in our very first lead singer, Sin.
And bass player.
Yeah, and we had a bass player who is trans, but Sin kind of got us started and was part of that whole package. And then we're just so grateful that Shanti came on board, because speaking of the Hedwig tunes, Shanti learned so quickly all of these Hedwig songs, and I would say that our audience that many of them are familiar with the Hedwig sort of tale, and that we do have audience members that come because they've got an affinity for that tale and that story. So that we started out that way, and we still include those songs with our sets.
It's a phenomenal soundtrack. If you're not familiar with, and I wasn't really familiar with it before I joined the band, it's absolutely phenomenal. Even if you don't watch the movie, just listen to the soundtrack. The music.
I've shared the link to the movie in the comments for anybody who's interested in learning more about Hedwig and the Angry Inch. Yes, it is an amazing. It's a classic. Broadway also, and very popular in theaters.
I will say that the soundtrack is way better than the movie. I mean, as far as the actual production of the movie goes, it's kind of corny. It's kind of a corny movie with an amazing soundtrack behind it. That's kind of the best way to explain it. So.
Corny. You're a dork.
So I'd like to know a little bit more about you. On your YouTube channel, you have some song demos that are already published there. Can you tell us a little bit about each of those demos that you've put together? Yeah.
Let's see, Bucky, you want to talk about Rock and Roll Fantasy, since that was the first one we put up?
Yeah, I wrote Rock and Roll Fantasy a long time ago, and I wrote it when I didn't have a band. So I was real happy to resurrect the song with a band, because I always envisioned it with a band. And basically that song is about me being attracted to somebody who I feel was really out of my league. So that's really all that Rock and Roll Fantasy is about. It's kind of a shallow song.
Good.
Yeah, it is good. It's good. Very sexy.
And it was fun for us because all we had going into it was Bucky's acoustic version. So we just heard the acoustic guitar, and then all of us got to put our parts to it. Joanne put the electric guitar to it. Mandy put the drums, and I came up with the bass line. So it was really too. It was a really cool effort to do it that way. The second one that we put up, I think, was Barsana Morn. And Barsana is a place in India. In my spare time, I'm a Hare Krishna devotee. So I've traveled to India 6 times. And one of my favorite places, if not my favorite place in the world, is a little place called Barsana, which is, maybe about 100 miles to the south of New Delhi. And it's a very spiritual place, and it's a very wonderful place. And in the morning, you walk up these mountains. There are 4 hilltops, and there's a temple at the top of each hilltop. In the morning, you walk up, and when I say morning, I'm talking like 4:30, 4:45, so it's dark. And there's all these wild monkeys, and you have to walk through this forest of monkeys to get to Radharani's temple. And they're really aggressive, and it's really scary because it's dark and you can't see. You can just see like little shadows. So that song is all about this place, which, you know, once you get to this mountaintop and then the sun starts coming up and there were all these wild parrots in the trees, the silhouettes. I think we have a picture in the video on the YouTube channel showing the parrots. I actually took that picture that morning that inspired the song. So that's what that's about. It's just this really, really cool place that I love. It's a very happy place. What else do we have? No Judgment Needed. We talked about it a little bit earlier.
Talk about Fine Time first, and then we'll get to the last 3 or 4.
Okay.
Fine
Fine Time to Say is actually a song that I wrote the lyrics to with a friend of mine, Jeff Logsdon, in 1985. So that song's been sitting around for 35 years. No, I didn't just age myself, did I? It's it was always a song that I liked, but it was always a song that never had nothing was ever done with it. And so I brought it out to play for the guys, and they were kind of like, well, yeah, it's all right. I said, well, let me play with it. Let me work around with it a little bit. And I changed the bass line around a little bit, make it a little more contemporary sounding. Then Mandy decided she's got, in addition to her beautiful drum kit that you see in the background, she's got an electric drum kit called an Elysius. And she did the drums on the electric kit, which totally changed the song. So what you're hearing is a song with lyrics from 35 years ago with the music that was totally done in the 21st century, just in the past few months. So that's that song. And it's, to be perfectly honest with you, the lyrics, I was really, really stoned one night with my friend, and and we just wrote some lyrics, you know. I mean, it's basically, it's a love song. It's about a girl who wants to break up with me, and you know, it's a fine time to say, you know, that you're sorry for the lying and everything. But at the end of the song, she says, you know, I say, it's a fine time to say that you never meant to say goodbye. So after you get on with your life, she comes back. It's like you just got over her, and now she wants to come back. So she's just screwing with you again. And at the very last, if you hear, there's a line at the end where I scream, "You treat me like a dog." Well, when we were writing the lyrics that night, there was a newscast on, the 11 o'clock news, and I looked over, and you know those cones that they put on dogs when they go to a vet? The volume was down, so I have no idea what the story was, but there was a dog, and I just went, "Hey, dude, look, there's a dog in a funnel." And so the actual title of the song is Fine Time to Say, parentheses, Dog in the Funnel. So that's the full title of it. So it's just, you know, it's just a fun little song, but it turned out really great. I'm very proud of it. And actually, my drummer from 35 years ago just listened to it yesterday, and he was like, "Wow, that sounds really good." So he likes what we did with it. And then, Mandy, you take No Judgment.
No Judgment Needed. Just for a minute. I was sending Shanti about a bunch of drum beats. I would call them drum beat 1, drum beat 2. We're trying to inspire some creativity between the two of us. And then once the rhythm section, Shanti playing bass, me playing drums, would come up with something we'd like, then we'd pass it on to our guitarists. So we tossed around ideas for a while, and I was sending some drum beats to her that didn't seem to really be going anywhere. And we had discussed, well, we should, I don't remember who brought it up, but we should have a song that talks about, you know, transgendered side of our lives. And I don't remember who started or whatever, but she said, well, write down some lyrics.
You brought it up. You brought that, which is why I said, "What do you want it to be about?" And Mandy's like, I don't write lyrics." And I said, "Well, just do something."
So I wrote down the basic ideas of what I kind of want about. We all have to sit in traffic and muddle away for hours waiting to get where we're going, and I don't need your dumbass to tell me that I'm living my life any worse than you're living your life, and so forth. And I sent her a drum beat to kind of go with it, and then she completely mastered the lyrics, came up with the bass line, and we had the start of No Judgment Needed. And it's definitely one of my favorites. I mean, it was the first of our transgendered messages, and go ahead and finish with the rest of our transgender songs, because you've pretty much created those on your own.
Well, I mean, just to finish up with No Judgment, it's kind of punk inspired. I mean, Mandy sent me a drum beat. I think that was drum beat 4. And the minute that I heard that drum beat, I immediately heard the bass in my head. I mean, immediately. So I got out my little digital recorder, played it, put it down, sent it back, said, what do you think about this? And she was like, wow, that just sounds great. And then like in a half hour, I had the lyrics written. She sent me like ideas and I just put them to a meter. And it came together very quickly. And when that happens, it's rare. And it usually means don't mess with it because you got it. You know, when it comes together that quickly, it's usually a good thing. So yeah, so that's a fun song, kind of punk inspired rock and roll, just hit you in the face. And 3 minutes and
It's
then
an
boom, it's done.
explosion.
It's an explosion, exactly.
Ah!
You've been very busy during the pandemic and yeah, the confinement and everything. It's changed the dynamic completely, no?
Yes.
It
Yeah.
absolutely did, yeah, because you know, we again started out doing the Hedwig songs and then some cover material, and we had talked about writing originals, but you know, with everybody working and all, it just, you know, didn't come together. And during the pandemic, I've been working from home since March 17th, and I took some days off. I took some vacation days, and it just gave me time to sit around and write, and it was brilliant. I mean, I loved it. So that was really cool. And so then the other two songs, which we kind of touched on, I don't know if we touched on the live show, we were talking about them earlier, that we're working on now. One is called Solve for X, and that is all about a trans person just trying to figure out who they are and how they're going to get to where they want to be. It's different than anything else that I've written so far. I really like it. I'm excited about it. I love the guitar that Bucky put on it Sunday. We got together and did some recording. I'm going to go over to Mandy's on Saturday and redo some vocals. So that's going to be fun. And then the last one that we're working on that I think is going to be incredibly powerful is a song called Dead to You, which is about a young trans person who gets thrown out of their house by their parent, which, you know, fortunately that never happened to any of us, but we all know people who have been through that situation. And when I had my surgery in Montreal in 1998, I met a young woman. It's in my blog. By the way, on our website, Mandy and I have done blogs as well to kind of tell our story. Ava was her name. Beautiful, beautiful young woman. And she had been thrown out of the house at the age of 13. Fortunately, she was found by a drag queen who got legal guardianship of her and raised her. But 13, she was in New York City, like Jamaica. She was thrown out on the street. Her father said, "You're dead to me." So this is a very important message. It's a very depressing message, and it's not going to be a happy song, and it doesn't have a happy ending. But we think it's very important to get that message out there. My mom never understood how any parent could not just love their child unconditionally. And I'm so grateful that I had a mother and a father who accepted me. I have a brother. I'm dead to my brother. You know, he will have nothing to do with me whatsoever. But my parents supported me, and that's all that mattered, you know. So those are the songs. And then, you know, a couple of ideas here and there. And we're talking about maybe resurrecting, is it a boy, is it a girl, is it a boy, is it a girl? Because it's a really, really cool song. And we think we might be able to update that a little bit. So lots of fun stuff going on.
Yeah, it sounds interesting, and I'm really looking forward to hearing the new songs as they come out. And on what you were saying now, Shanti, about "Dead to Me," "Dead to You" is the name of the song, right? That you're working
Yes.
on right now. And I wish, you know, we didn't have to discuss these kinds of issues, but we still do, and obviously because it's still happening. And so I agree that it's very important to talk about these things, and that, you know,
Well,
trans
again,
people are people.
if we don't do it, who's going to do it? Nobody else is writing songs like that. So we got to get that message out there. You know, this is ridiculous. This is your child, you know? Bottom line, this is your child.
Absolutely. And I think that when we talk about the safe spaces, you know, this debate about women's spaces and women's safe spaces, it really bothers me because the whole base of the argument is that, you know, trans people aren't the gender that they say they are. And that's just not true. And if they think that someone like the subject of this song, a young a minor who's been thrown out of their house and is all alone, has nowhere to go, why would somebody do that? Now, why would somebody, you know, want to, you know, feel the need to have to say the truth about themselves so badly that it meant getting kicked out of their house? That's not something people do on a whim.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, transmisogyny is a real thing. And I love the book Whipping Girl by Julia Serrano. And if you haven't read it, it's an amazing book about transmisogyny, because personally, I think that in some ways it's a little bit easier for people to take female to male transgender people than it is male to female. I don't know if that's true, but there is, you know, a lot of transmisogyny that goes on. And when you're talking about women's safe spaces, you know, I do think that trans women should be included in those spaces. And I think that a safe space was kind of always a dream and not necessarily an actuality. Safe space can be very safe, including women who are transgender.
Absolutely. I agree completely. So thank you for writing these songs, for bringing the themes to the forefront, for raising visibility, for being out there, you know, for the rest of the community, and giving hope to other people and other creative people who, you know, will find inspiration in what you're doing, and, you know, just people going about their lives and living the dream, making their dreams come true and making music, and it really is inspiring. So is there anything that you want for people to remember from this discussion today? One key point that you want to send out to these people who are looking for inspiration and need that little, you know, push of hope?
I think for me, I want everybody to have an awesome life. Go out there. This is your one life. Make it awesome.
I just, you know, what you said, Lilia, about creating. I've done a couple of just posts on my social media during the pandemic that I have found it completely liberating throughout this pandemic, that I've been more creative than I've been in years. Find something that you do. Write your life story. Everybody has stories, things that they've experienced that would be amusing or entertaining to other people. I promise you, everybody has done that. You don't think you can write music? You know what? Everybody can come up with a melody. You grab a little digital recorder like I keep laying around here, sing it into that, then find a guitar player and put some music to it. You can do that. Paint, even if you don't think you can paint, who cares? Just do it. But anything creative, outside garden, if you're into that, that's, you know, I've encountered people who are so depressed during this pandemic where they've been, you know, stuck at home and not able to go places. It hasn't bothered me because I've been so darn busy doing creative stuff, you know, and I think that's a very important aspect to keep you mentally busy. Just create things. You know, everybody can create something.
Yeah, find your happy place, really,
Mm-hmm.
and go there, whatever it is.
What would Joanne say?
Something dorky.
Dorky.
Yeah.
Here, Joanne, we really do love you.
We love you, Joanne.
We missed you.
Sorry,
You couldn't have done it without you.
Yeah, you know I'm just kidding with you.
Well, Bucky, Mandy, Shanti, thank you so much for sharing your creativity, your ideas, your opinions today with me and to all of our listeners. I really appreciate it.
Thank you so much for having us. It's been great.
Thank you so much.
It's a pleasure. And I also wanted to say thank you for those viewers who have come here today, and for those who are watching this video in its replayed version. Let's give a clap, please, in the comments down below. Clap for our invitees today, our special guests, Exquisite Gender. Make sure you follow them on YouTube, on their Facebook, and their website. You can find the links in our description and in the comments below. So thanks again, you guys.
Well, thanks for the opportunity.
Really look forward to hearing the music that you're going to bring out in the future.
Thank you.
Thanks,
Okay,
Lilia.
now you're putting pressure on me, Lilia.
Slowly but surely. So to our viewers now, your input and lobbying are important. Please keep talking to us and let us know what you want to hear. More importantly, if you are an ally, a healthcare professional, or working with the LGBTQ plus community, please show your support and send messages to your legislators, your MPs, tweet the powers that be, do whatever you can to help charities like GLAAD and Stonewall continue to do their work that is helping to protect the basic human rights like healthcare access and peeing are respected. So thanks again to Exquisite Gender here with me today. And please do stay tuned for upcoming lives. In August, I'll have some specialists in permanent hair removal and with Peach Clinics from Australia and with Beverly Hills Hair Free from California, as well as some top experts in makeup application with representatives from Jekka Black in the UK and from the, what was the name of it? Oh, I forgot. Mandy's. Well, she's from California too, and she works with celebrities, and she is going to be amazing. So we're looking forward to having also some of our contacts who are specialists in makeup to accompany us in those lives. It'll be a back-to-back. I'm actually doing 2 lives back-to-back that day, both on makeup application around surgery and scar and bruising cover-up and that kind of thing. So finally, thanks people for coming. Please join our patient peer group on Facebook. I've put the link below, and don't forget to stay tuned about our upcoming lives by clicking on our link to the newsletter. Sign up for our newsletter. Again, stay safe, everybody. Stay healthy. And remember, your happiness and healthcare matters.
Woohoo!
Don't go anywhere here. Stay here in Zoom. But bye-bye. We're ending the stream. Thank you.